A poor girl fixed her bra using a car window, never knowing a millionaire fell for her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The parking lot behind Oakridge Mall in Portland was unusually calm that evening. The sun was sinking behind the distant buildings, giving every parked car a warm, golden outline. A soft breeze rustled through the rows of shopping carts lined near the entrance, carrying faint echoes of closing time chatter from the stores inside. Emma stepped out of the employee door with her backpack slung over one shoulder. Her legs felt heavy after a double shift at the smoothie shop, and her shoulders ached from leaning over counters for hours. Her uniform shirt clung to her skin, and the strap of her worn-out bra dug sharply into her shoulder. She winced, gave a quick look around the empty lot, and stopped beside a black SUV with polished windows. The tinted glass reflected her clearly, just like a mirror. She set her backpack down, brushed her hair behind her ears, and lifted her arms slightly so she could adjust the stubborn strap beneath her shirt. She tried to be discreet, glancing to the left and right, hoping no one would walk out at that exact moment. When the pressure finally eased, she let out a quiet breath of relief. Inside the SUV, seated behind the wheel, was Andrew Hayes. He had just finished reviewing a set of projections for an upcoming launch at his tech company. His attention drifted when he sensed movement outside. When he looked up and saw Emma using his window as a mirror, he froze for a moment. She clearly had no idea anyone was inside. Her uniform was rumpled, her expression was tired, and yet there was a simple honesty to the way she tried to fix herself. No vanity, no posing, just a young woman trying to regain a little dignity after a long day. Andrew felt something shift in him. He had spent years surrounded by people who measured their words and movements like currency, but the girl in the reflection looked real in a way he had not seen for a very long time. Emma finished readjusting her shirt, tied her hair into a loose ponytail, and picked up her backpack. She walked toward the bus stop at the far end of the lot, never once realizing that someone had been watching her, not with judgment, but with a quiet fascination. Andrew stayed in his seat for a few extra seconds. He could not explain why the moment lingered in his mind. It was small, ordinary, and yet it felt different from the noise that filled his life every day. He started the engine, but his thoughts remained on the girl, who walked away into the fading sunset. Emma reached the bus shelter just as the first streetlights flickered to life. The evening breeze carried a chill that slipped through her thin shirt, and she held her backpack closer. She let her eyes close for a brief moment, unaware that her life had already taken a turn she could not yet see. And for Andrew, a single unexpected moment had already begun to change everything. The bus ride home gave Emma a few precious minutes of quiet. She slid into a window seat, rested her forehead against the cool glass, and felt her body slowly relax after another long day. The city lights drifted past in soft streaks, and the hum of the engine became a dull, comforting rhythm. She pulled out her phone, hoping for a message from her mother, but instead saw a new reminder from her landlord. Rent was still overdue. She locked the screen immediately and looked back out the window, trying not to think about it. When the bus reached her stop, she climbed down the steps and began the familiar walk along her narrow street. The houses were old, their paint fading under the Oregon weather, but they were quiet and safe enough. She reached her building, pushed open the heavy door, and walked up to her small third-floor apartment. The motion sensor light flickered once before staying on, casting long shadows across the hallway. Inside, everything was exactly as she had left it that morning. Her single lamp glowed dimly in the corner. Her small kitchen sink was still stacked with dishes she had hoped to wash before work, but exhaustion was stronger than intention. She placed her backpack on the only chair in the room and toed off her shoes. For a moment, she stayed still, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant rumble of traffic outside. She reached for her old sketchbook, the one she had used since high school. Its cover was bent, its corners soft from years of being opened and closed. She flipped through the pages slowly, dress silhouettes, color palettes, rough sketches of outfits she wished she could sew one day. Most were unfinished, but each one carried a piece of her. Her dream of becoming a designer had never died. It had only gone quiet under the weight of bills and double shifts. Her eyes lingered on a drawing of a navy dress. Clean lines, soft folds, simple elegance. She smiled slightly. If she could ever afford fabric, that dress would be the first thing she made. She pressed her hand against the page, feeling the grooves of her pencil strokes, then closed the book gently and set it aside. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she had barely eaten since noon. She filled a pot with water and placed it on the stove, heating her last cup of instant noodles. As she waited, she leaned against the counter and looked at the sketchbook again. She wondered if anyone would ever look at her designs and see potential. She wondered if she would ever have the chance to show them to someone who believed in her. Across the city, the lights in Andrew Hayes's apartment reflected on the glass walls as he stood overlooking the Willamette River. His penthouse was modern and quiet, too quiet sometimes, and tonight the silence felt unusually heavy. He loosened his tie and set his jacket on the back of the couch. His mind drifted back to the girl in the parking lot, the reflection of her face in the SUV window, the tired determination in her eyes. He sat down at his kitchen island, opened his laptop, and tried to review reports for the next day's board meeting. But the words blurred together. He kept thinking about the way she had carried herself, trying not to draw attention, trying to make herself invisible in a world that moved too fast to notice her. He did not know her name. He did not know her story, but something about her felt unforgettable. Emma finished her quick dinner, washed the pot, and climbed onto her small bed. Her blanket was thin but soft from years of use. She pulled it up to her chin and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she would wake up early, catch another bus, and start all over again. Another shift, another crowd, another day chasing something she was not sure she could ever catch. She had no idea that someone had noticed her in a way that would soon change everything. And across town, Andrew stared out at the river, feeling a strange sense that his life had shifted, even if he could not explain why. The night moved quietly over Portland, but their story had already begun. The next morning arrived with a soft gray sky hanging low over Portland. Emma moved through her tiny apartment with slow, sleepy steps. She dressed in her uniform, tied her hair into a neat ponytail, and slipped her sketchbook into her backpack. She always carried it with her, even on the busiest days. It reminded her that she still had something of her own, something that kept her going. She reached the bus stop just as the morning traffic began to build. The air was cool, carrying the smell of wet pavement from a light drizzle earlier. When the bus arrived, she boarded quickly and found a seat near the back. She opened her sketchbook on her lap and started adding small notes to an unfinished design. It was the only quiet moment she would get before the rush of customers at the smoothie shop. Across town, Andrew woke earlier than usual. A restless energy pushed him out of bed long before his alarm went off. He showered, dressed in a crisp shirt, and headed out with his briefcase. As he walked toward the parking garage beneath his building, he found himself thinking about the girl again. He told himself it was just curiosity, just a fleeting impression, but he could not deny the peculiar pull he felt. When he reached Oakridge Mall later that morning for a meeting with one of the retail partners, he parked in the same area as the night before. A part of him wondered if he might see her again, though he had no reason to expect it. He walked through the mall entrance, passing lines of stores opening for the day. At the smoothie shop, the morning rush hit fast. Emma blended drinks, wiped counters, and called out orders with a practiced rhythm. Her hands worked quickly, but her mind wandered. She wondered if she could find a second part-time job to help pay rent. She wondered if she could ever save enough to take a fashion course at the community college. She wondered if anything in her life would ever change. A shadow fell across the counter. "Good morning," a calm voice said. Emma glanced up. A man in a tailored shirt and dark jeans stood there, holding his phone loosely in one hand. His posture was relaxed, his expression polite. She recognized him vaguely, but she could not place where from. Maybe he had come in before. Maybe he was just another customer in a long line of people she had served. "What can I get for you?" she asked. "Strawberry banana smoothie," he said with a small smile. As she prepared the drink, Andrew watched her carefully. He noticed the faint tiredness in her face, the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the way she moved with efficiency, despite her exhaustion. He had seen her reflection last night, But seeing her in person was different. Here, she was not just a tired girl adjusting her clothes. She was someone trying her best in a world that often asked for too much. When she handed him the drink, their eyes met for a brief second. She did not recognize him from the SUV. He expected that. The windows had been tinted, and she was too focused on fixing her clothes to notice anything else. "Thank you," he said, voice steady. She nodded. "Have a good day." He left the shop but did not go far. He sat on a bench across the walkway, pretending to read something on his phone while watching the flow of customers. Part of him wanted to speak to her again, but another part urged caution. He was used to people reacting to his wealth, his status, his name. He wondered what someone like her would think if she knew who he really was. Inside the shop, Emma wiped down the counter again. Something about the customer lingered in her thoughts. She shook it off, telling herself it was nothing. She had no room in her life for distractions. But Andrew felt something shift. He had walked into the mall for business, yet he walked out with a growing desire to understand the girl behind the tired smile. And neither of them knew how much this small moment would matter. The afternoon rush at the smoothie shop finally slowed, giving Emma a moment to breathe. She stepped into the back room to refill the fruit containers and stretch her aching hands. Her manager reminded her she had a delivery run to make soon, a routine job where she carried a tray of drinks to an office inside the mall. She nodded, washed her hands, and prepared the order. When she stepped out with the carrier, the mall hallway hummed with soft chatter and the echo of footsteps. She walked past clothing stores and kiosks, her sneakers squeaking slightly on the polished floor. The address on the receipt led her to a small conference room near the mall's administration offices. She knocked gently, then pushed the door open. Inside, several people sat around a table with documents spread in front of them. And there, standing near the end of the table, was the man from earlier. Andrew looked up the instant she entered. His expression shifted, just slightly, but enough to reveal he recognized her. "Delivery for Oakridge Mall management," Emma said softly. The staff thanked her as she set the drinks down. Andrew watched her with quiet curiosity, noting how she moved with a combination of timidity and resilience, as if she was used to being overlooked, but determined not to be defeated by it. Once she finished, she nodded politely and stepped out. In the hallway, she let out a slow breath. Something about his gaze had unsettled her. Not in a threatening way, but in a way that made her feel oddly seen. She shook off the thought and headed back to the shop. Later that evening, when her shift ended, she walked to the bus stop with her backpack hanging loosely from one shoulder. The sky was dim, tinted with purple as the sun dipped behind the hills. She pulled out her sketchbook and flipped it open, sketching loosely while waiting. Lines began to form a shape, a new dress idea inspired by a woman she had seen earlier in the mall wearing a tailored coat. Emma lost herself in the flow of pencil strokes. She did not notice that Andrew stood a short distance away, having just stepped out of the mall after his meetings. He spotted her before she noticed him, sitting on the bench with her knees tucked slightly inward, sketchbook open, pencil moving gently across the page. He hesitated. He had no reason to approach her, but something kept him rooted to the spot. He watched the small movements of her hand, the way she paused, studied the page, and continued drawing with a quiet focus. She looked different when she sketched, calmer, almost peaceful. The bus approached, its bright headlights sweeping across the sidewalk. Emma snapped her sketchbook shut and stood quickly. She stepped on board, paid the fare, and took her seat near the back as always. The doors closed, and the bus rumbled away. Andrew remained standing there, hands in his pockets, watching the bus disappear around the corner. He exhaled slowly, almost as if waking up from a strange dream. He returned to his SUV, but instead of starting the engine immediately, he sat for a few minutes in silence. He replayed the day, seeing her at the shop, watching her deliver the smoothies, spotting her drawing at the bus stop. Each moment felt small, but the feeling inside him grew stronger. Back on the bus, Emma studied her reflection in the dark window. She wondered if she would ever have the chance to show her work to anyone who mattered. She wondered if life would always be this cycle of shifts, buses, and bills. Her chest tightened with a familiar mix of determination and fear. When she arrived home, she reheated leftover noodles and placed her sketchbook beside her plate. She tried to draw again, but her hand felt heavy tonight. She kept thinking about the man from the shop, the polite customer with the steady voice. For a moment she wondered who he really was, but she dismissed the thought. He was just another face in the crowd. Across the city, Andrew finally drove home, unaware that the day had changed something inside him. And Emma had no idea how closely their paths had begun to weave together. The night settled over Portland again, quiet and steady, carrying both of them forward towards something neither could yet see. The next morning arrived with a cool layer of mist draped over Portland. Emma woke before her alarm, her thoughts already racing. She moved quietly through her tiny apartment, preparing for another long day at the smoothie shop. Her sketchbook slipped into her backpack as always, the one constant piece of hope she refused to leave behind. When she reached the bus stop, she pulled her jacket tighter against the chilly air and glanced at the schedule. 10 minutes until the next bus. She sat on the bench, pulled out her sketchbook, and continued the design she had started the night before. The pencil moved slowly this time, her mind still heavy with worries about rent and overdue bills. Across town, Andrew stood in the lobby of his company headquarters, greeting a group of partners arriving for a morning briefing. His expressions were calm and controlled, the way they always were in business settings, but his mind wandered. He kept thinking about the girl from the smoothie shop, the way she drew at the bus stop the night before, the faint determination in her eyes, the quiet strength she seemed unaware she possessed. He tried to focus on the meeting, but his assistant leaned in and reminded him he had a scheduled inspection at Oakridge Mall later in the afternoon. He nodded, and for the first time in a long while, he felt anticipation rather than obligation. Meanwhile, at the shop, Emma tackled the morning rush head-on. She took orders, blended drinks, wiped spills, and greeted customers with a soft smile. But fatigue tugged at her steadily. During a short break, she checked her phone and saw another reminder from her landlord. The number felt heavier today. She rubbed her forehead and pushed the phone deep into her pocket. By the time late afternoon arrived, she was sent out again to deliver an order to the same administrative office inside the mall. She carried the tray carefully as she walked through the hallway, her steps slow but steady. When she reached the conference room, she froze. Andrew stood outside the door, speaking with a manager. He turned at the sound of her footsteps. For a moment, neither of them moved. His expression softened instantly, the sort of shift he rarely showed anyone. "You again," he said gently. Emma nodded, unsure of what to say. "Delivery for the office." He stepped aside so she could enter, but something in his gaze lingered. As she set the drinks down, she felt her heart beat faster than she expected. She had seen countless customers all week, yet his presence unsettled her in a way she could not understand. She finished the delivery and stepped back into the hallway. Andrew was still there, as if waiting for her. She hesitated, unsure if she should walk past him or acknowledge him. "You work very hard," he said. Emma blinked in surprise. Compliments were not something she heard often. "I just do what I need to," he nodded. "I respect that." There was sincerity in his tone, something warm and steady. She looked down briefly, unsure how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like that in this place. Not a customer, not a manager, not anyone. "Have a good evening," she said softly. "You too, Emma," he replied. She stiffened slightly. She did not remember telling him her name. Then she glanced at her uniform and saw the small embroidered tag on her pocket. She felt a quiet wave of embarrassment and relief. As she walked away, she felt his gaze follow her for a moment, not in a way that frightened her, but in a way that made her wonder why someone like him would notice someone like her. Andrew watched her disappear into the crowd of shoppers. Something settled deeper in his chest, an impulse he could not quite name yet, but he knew this was not the last time their paths would cross. And for Emma, a simple delivery had shifted something she did not yet understand. Emma finished her shift that evening, feeling more drained than usual. When she stepped outside the mall, the sky had already darkened, and the streetlights cast long pools of soft yellow across the pavement. She walked toward the bus stop, rubbing her hands together for warmth. The breeze carried the scent of rain, hinting that the night would grow colder before she reached home. She sat on the bench and pulled out her sketchbook again. Drawing always helped quiet her mind, but tonight her pencil hesitated on the page. She kept replaying the moment with Andrew in the hallway, the steady way he said her name, the unexpected warmth in his voice. It felt strange that someone like him had noticed her at all. She shook her head softly, reminding herself that he was just a customer, nothing more. The bus arrived and she climbed aboard. The ride home felt longer than usual, each stop adding to the heaviness in her eyes. When she reached her apartment, she microwaved leftover soup, changed into her softest pajamas, and sat on the bed with her sketchbook open. She tried to draw, but exhaustion finally pushed her under, and she fell asleep with the pencil still in her hand. Across the city, Andrew sat in his penthouse kitchen, a half-finished report open on his laptop. He had read the same sentence 5 times without absorbing a word. His thoughts kept drifting to the girl he had seen 3 times now. It puzzled him. He met hundreds of people a week, yet none stayed in his mind the way she did. He remembered the way she clutched her sketchbook at the bus stop, the concentration on her face when she drew. It made him wonder what was inside that worn notebook. Ideas? Dreams? Or maybe something she never showed anyone. He exhaled and leaned back in his chair. His assistant's voice echoed in his mind from earlier that day. "You seem distracted, sir." He had brushed it off, but the truth was harder to ignore now. The next morning, Emma woke early again. The cold air inside her apartment made her wrap her blanket tighter around her shoulders. She dressed quickly and headed out, catching the bus just as the first rays of daylight broke through the clouds. In her seat, she opened her sketchbook once more. Her pencil moved slowly at first, then more confidently. A new design began to form, a simple yet elegant coat with clean lines, inspired by a woman she had seen wearing one in the mall corridor. Drawing it felt like breathing again. When she arrived at the smoothie shop, her manager handed her a note, another delivery run, this time to a corporate leasing office inside the mall, not far from where Andrew had been the day before. Emma nodded and prepared the drinks. On the walk over, she kept telling herself that she might not see him again. He was a busy man. People like him moved through the world quickly, with little reason to stop for someone like her. Still, when she neared the hallway, she felt her heartbeat pick up slightly. She pushed open the door to the leasing office, and there he was. Andrew stood near a row of filing cabinets, reviewing documents with a staff member. He looked up the moment she entered. His expression softened instantly, as if her presence had lifted something inside him. "Good morning, Emma," he said. She felt a flutter in her stomach that she did not want to acknowledge. "Delivery for your office," she replied. He walked over, closer than before, but still respectful of her space. "You always look focused," he said quietly. "I like seeing that." She blinked, taken aback by the genuineness of his tone. Compliments were not part of her everyday world. She felt heat rise in her cheeks, but tried to hide it behind a small smile. "Thank you," she said. "I just work hard." "I can see that," he replied. For a moment, the noise of the office faded. It felt like the hallway had shrunk around the two of them, as if something invisible had shifted again. Emma stepped back slightly, unsure of what to do. "I should head back to the shop." He nodded. "Of course. Have a good day." As she walked away, she felt the weight of his gaze, calm, curious, unjudging. It lingered even after she turned the corner. And Andrew, standing in the quiet hallway, realized something he had not felt in years. He wanted to know her story. The rest of Emma's day felt strangely lighter, though she tried hard not to let it show. She moved through the smoothie shop with her usual focus, taking orders and blending drinks, but every now and then, her mind drifted back to the quiet hallway and the way Andrew had spoken to her. She reminded herself that she barely knew him. She reminded herself that he was simply being polite, but the memory lingered in a way she could not easily shake. When her shift ended, she stepped outside into the fading afternoon sunlight. The sky was streaked with pale orange, and the air held a hint of cold. She made her way toward the bus stop, stopping briefly to fix the strap of her backpack. As she waited, she opened her sketchbook again. Her pencil moved in slow circles, outlining the coat design she had started that morning. Drawing made her feel grounded, even when life felt uncertain. Across town, Andrew wrapped up another long meeting and glanced at his watch. He felt restless again, a feeling he could not entirely explain. He left his office early, telling his assistant he needed a moment to clear his head. Instead of driving straight home, he found himself heading back toward Oakridge Mall. He told himself it was just habit, but deep down, he knew better. When he arrived, the parking lot was buzzing with shoppers heading home. He stepped out of his SUV and walked through the mall entrance. His eyes scanned the corridors, not frantically, but with a quiet hopefulness he tried to ignore. He did not know if she was still working, and he had no intention of disturbing her, but he wanted to feel close to the place where their paths kept crossing. Inside the smoothie shop, Emma helped her coworker finish cleaning the counters and emptying the trash. She felt tired, but strangely content, as if the day had carried a different kind of energy. She hung up her apron and stepped outside, unaware that someone familiar was only a short hallway away. She reached the bus stop just as Andrew walked out of the mall, heading toward the same parking lot. For a moment, their paths aligned perfectly, but from different angles. Andrew noticed her first. She sat on the bench with her sketchbook open on her lap, her head tilted slightly as she studied the page. The late sunlight spilled across her hair, turning the edges golden. He hesitated. He did not want to interrupt her. But before he could decide whether to walk over, her bus approached with a loud hiss of brakes. She closed her sketchbook quickly, slipped it into her bag, and boarded the bus without looking up. Andrew watched as the doors closed and the bus began to pull away. A faint sense of disappointment settled in his chest. He reminded himself that this was ridiculous. He did not even know her last name, yet something about her kept drawing him closer without him realizing it. Inside the bus, Emma took her usual seat near the back and leaned against the window. The city blurred past in soft streaks of red and white from passing cars. She felt a strange ache in her chest, though she could not explain why. She had not seen Andrew again, but something about the day left her feeling suspended between curiosity and uncertainty. When she arrived home, she set her bag down, warmed a small bowl of soup, and sat on her bed with her sketchbook open once more. She traced the lines of her latest design, thinking about fabrics, colors, and possibilities that felt far away, but still worth imagining. Meanwhile, Andrew sat in his SUV for several minutes before starting the engine. The memory of seeing her at the bus stop tugged at him. He did not want to intrude on her life, but he also could not shake the feeling that she was meant to remain in his. He finally drove off, the city lights reflecting in the windshield. Neither of them knew it yet, but the distance between their worlds was already beginning to collapse. And 15. Millionaire bà cô gái da trắng, 39 foot, said, the next few days passed in a steady rhythm for Emma. Work, bus rides, quick meals, and late-night sketches filled her routine. She tried not to think about Andrew, but his presence kept slipping into her thoughts at unexpected moments. The way he said her name, the sincerity in his voice. It felt strange, almost impossible, that someone like him would notice someone like her. On Thursday afternoon, her manager handed her another delivery order. This one was larger than usual, a full tray of smoothies for a tenant meeting at the mall's leasing office. Emma balanced the drinks carefully and made her way through the hallway. She pushed the door open gently, expecting to see a group of employees waiting. She did not expect to see Andrew standing near the center of the room, speaking with several department heads. He turned the instant she stepped inside. Their eyes met, and something warm flickered in his expression, a recognition that felt deeper than before. Emma lowered her gaze quickly. "Delivery for the meeting," she said softly. The staff thanked her as she placed the tray on the conference table. Andrew stepped closer, not too close, but enough that she could feel his presence. "You are here again," he said quietly. She nodded. "Just doing my job." His eyes drifted to the sketchbook peeking out of her backpack. "You draw often," he said. "I noticed that last time." She froze for a moment, surprised he remembered. "It helps me think," she replied. Andrew hesitated before speaking again. "You seem very dedicated to your work, and to your art." Her breath caught slightly. No one had ever said something like that to her, not with genuine interest. She felt a mixture of pride and fear rise in her chest. "I try," she said softly. For a moment, the noise of the meeting faded behind them. It felt as if they were standing in a quiet bubble that neither of them fully understood. Then Emma stepped back instinctively, reminding herself of the distance between their worlds. "I should get back to the shop," she said. Andrew nodded. "Of course." As she turned to leave, he stopped himself from calling after her. He wanted to know more. He wanted to ask about her drawings, her life, her dreams. But he sensed she carried a weight he did not yet understand, and pushing too quickly might break the fragile trust beginning to form. Emma walked down the hallway with her heart beating faster than she wished it would. The warmth in his voice lingered with her all the way back to the shop. And Andrew stood in the quiet room, realizing that his life, carefully controlled and meticulously planned, was beginning to shift in ways he had never expected. The sun dipped low on Friday evening as Emma finished wiping the last counter at the smoothie shop. Her manager dismissed her early, saying the mall was slowing down for the night. She was grateful. Exhaustion had settled deep into her bones. She slung her backpack over her shoulder and stepped out into the softly lit corridor. As she walked toward the bus stop, she noticed a small group of people near the mall's event space. A modest display had been set up, a few easels, soft lighting, and a simple banner that read, "Local Creativity Showcase." She paused for a moment, admiring the sketches pinned on the boards. Dresses, jackets, and accessory ideas lined the walls. Her eyes softened. She wished she could place her own work somewhere like that, even if just for a moment. She turned to leave. "Emma." She froze. Andrew stood a few steps behind her, hands relaxed at his sides, his expression gentle. He walked closer, not hurriedly, but with quiet intention. The warm glow from the display lights brushed across his face. "I was hoping I might see you tonight," he said. She swallowed softly. "I did not know there was an event." "It is a small one," he replied, "but meaningful." She nodded, unsure of what else to say. Her fingers tightened slightly around the strap of her backpack. Andrew glanced at the sketchbook tucked inside it. "May I ask something?" he said. She hesitated. "What is it?" "Would you ever show me your drawings?" Her breath stilled in her chest. No one had ever asked her that. Not once. She looked down, shifting her weight nervously. I do not think they are very good," she whispered. He shook his head softly. "I think they matter because they are yours, and I would like to see them, only if you want to share." For a moment, the sounds of the mall faded into a distant hum. Emma slowly opened her backpack and pulled out the sketchbook. She held it out with trembling hands. He took it carefully, as if it were something fragile. He flipped through the pages one by one, his expression warming with each design. When he reached the navy dress sketch, he paused. "This is beautiful," he said quietly. Emma's eyes filled with a soft disbelief. "You really think so?" "I do," he said, "and I want you to know something. You deserve to be seen. Your work deserves to be seen." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said words like that to her. He handed the sketchbook back gently. "If you ever want help getting your designs out into the world," he said, "I would be honored to support you. Not out of pity, but because you have talent." A quiet warmth spread through her chest, easing the heaviness she had carried for so long. She nodded, unable to find her voice at first. "Thank you," she finally whispered. They stood together beneath the soft lights of the display, two lives from different worlds slowly beginning to draw closer. And as Emma stepped onto her bus later that night, she held her sketchbook against her chest with renewed hope. Sometimes, a single moment can change everything. And for both Emma and Andrew, this was the beginning of something neither of them had dared to imagine.